Why Creature Commandos of all things?
Basically,
There's barely
LOL
anyone
JK,
ever knows
the
it's
entire
first
movie
Commandos
universe is being rebooted.
Fight against people who are claiming that the dog is
Gunn
woke.
just remakes Guardians of the Galaxy over and over
I said
again.
a while ago that I want these video essays to be always about something I really love. Ah, fuck. I like James Gunn, but I might not love James Gunn. If you're someone who wants to defend his take on the DCU, just hear me out before you type something too quickly.
Kill yourself.
Likewise, if you're one of those ultra-edgy Snyderverse necromancers who draws Gunn's head dangling from Clark Kent's fist, 11 years ago, I'd felt a little worn down with the consistent aesthetic and presentation of the MCU. I still enjoyed those movies, but Iron Man 3 and Thor: The Dark World had left me feeling sour. Don't get me wrong, Winter Soldier frickin' slaps, but it was the movie after that really managed to drag me back in. Guardians of the Galaxy was new. It took obscure characters that not many people knew about, even comic fans, and turned it into this heartfelt, vibrant, and bombastic space adventure. It was, simply put, fantastic. Guardians 2 drops 3 years later. I didn't like it as much, but it's still really solid, and other people loved it, so I'll count it as Gunn running 2 for 2. After all, the only other movies I'd seen from him were... So, you know, he's only ever written bangers. Flash forward, and James Gunn got an unceremonious booting from Marvel Studios for some really problematic tweets, got picked up by Warner Bros., and made The Suicide Squad.
So that's it? What, we some kind of...
No, not that one. The one with the in the name. That's better. So, okay. Again, I liked it, but I didn't love it. Then, Guardians 3. I cried like a baby. Laughed like a baby. Got my diaper changed like a baby. It was great. I dropped off the MCU more or less after Endgame, but I came back for Guardians 3, and it was the epilogue I needed.
I love you guys.
It was a beautiful, funny, and again heartfelt send-off to these characters who would have just drifted back into obscurity if the first film bombed. Like, the Eternals. Peacemaker, I'll be honest, I watched 2 episodes and just haven't picked it back up. I know I'll come back to it eventually, but that hasn't happened yet. But if public opinion is anything to go by, it's super good and super messed up. On the business side of things, Discovery bought Warner, it's a whole thing, the DCEU got axed, and now the DCU is in. James Gunn is left holding the bag with a bundle of already completed projects, saying what's canon and what isn't so that people still go see Aquaman 2 Hydration Boogaloo, but by this point, since the other films have each died in theaters like whatever superhero flick Sony is cooking up this month, the only productions he's still saying will count in this cinematic universe are his projects. Well, I guess they were received well critically, but that still feels a little... Anyways, but that's the thing. They're retroactively part of the DCU, a consideration made after production. A billion projects have since been hinted at, greenlit, teased, or otherwise revealed, and now we have the first DCU project meant to be part of the DCU, Creature Commandos.
Shish kebab!
Okay, a unique start, which might be just what we need to set the blue team here apart from the red team. Now, like I did with my videos on Fallout and on Batman Caped Crusader, I'm gonna hit this episode by episode, but I can tell I'm going to have a lot to say, and not all of it is gonna be nice. Let's rip off this band-aid. Today, we're talking about Creature Commandos, the prologue to James Gunn's DCU. Before we begin, remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoy it, and if you like what I'm doing here, go ahead and subscribe. To the newbies, welcome, and to the oldies, welcome back. Let's talk about the DCU.
Themyscira is like the sickest place ever, and then you tell me, oh dude, only women can live there? What? That's so sexist, bro.
I have this question for all the woke feminists out there.
Okay, now here's the exact instance that a bunch of people shut off the TV, sent some hate mail to James Gunn, and then went to the next tab on their browser to rant about DEI jawlines and how they miss the days of superheroes being played by dudes built like wrestlers. All buff and hairy and oily. Let's take a tea and break this down for a moment. The Sons of Themyscira are clearly the bad guys in the scenario we're being introduced to. Their argument, boiled down to its core, is that they think it's a load of BS that an entire nation can exclude men, and that this is, in fact, sexist. Now, here's the thing. They're right. To an extent. Like, yes, saying men are not permitted to participate in our government on a technical level is sexist. But that's the surface. Themyscira is an island nation built exclusively by women who were mistreated, abused, or manipulated by the Greek gods, specifically the men, and sought to make their own space to build without patriarchal authority. And, in the lore of the comics, most new Themyscirans are the reincarnated souls of women who died violent deaths, many of whom suffered abuse from men and can now live a life more befitting what they deserved. It's a sanctuary, and the Sons of Themyscira are opposed to it because, what? They feel like men need more third spaces to hang out in? Are these dudes gonna, get really into pottery and horticulture? No, these are people who see a space occupied by women and say, that isn't right, it should belong to them. And this hot piece of ass who seems to tolerate them. Because that's what they see her as, a spectacle, not a person. But there's some other stuff in this show that makes me feel a bit odd arguing that Creature Commandos is feminist. We'll get to that in a moment. So, we roll the opening credits, see who's playing who, and for the first time in any piece of media I've seen, James Gunn gives himself a whole animated segment to say, hey, I wrote this. Which, okay bud, chill. Maybe he's just really excited about being in charge of things, but even Hitchcock only gave us his silhouette, and that guy was practically living up his own rear end.
Please, James Gunn, sit on me.
Pump the brakes a little. Being the first episode, we get introduced to the cast. Rick Flag Sr., The Bride, G.I. Robot, Weasel, Dr. Phosphorus, and Nina. The individual characters here are easily the best part, an entertaining blend of charisma, hateability, and abnormality. I'm glad to see Alan Tudyk in, well, anything, so it's nice to see him here, and I feel like Sean Gunn does a good job with G.I. Robot. But, quick complaint.
How does that radiation affect the people around him?
If you don't sleep in the same room with him, the effects should be minimal.
Minimal?
Consider it a free vasectomy.
This, ladies, babies, and gentlemen, is what is commonly referred to in the industry as a joke. But the thing is that it appears to be a quite genuine statement from Amanda Waller. Dr. Phosphorus puts out radiation, and if you're standing too close for too long, call yourself Ken Takakura because those balls are gone, my guy. So let's send him off to stand guard next to the only lucid heir in this royal family of a foreign nation we're trying to make friends with, and, oh, she's down bad for the director stand-in. Episode 2 of Creature Commandos marks a trend in the show, having an episode focused primarily on one character and intercutting flashbacks to show how sad and how tragic and how much of a major bummer their lives are. First up to bat is the bride. As I'll be focusing almost entirely on the flashback for this one, I want to open up by saying that I enjoy the design for Frankenstein Castle, making it distinct from your classic Universal Studios Monster Manor. It's in this episode that we're properly introduced to another major character, Eric Frankenstein. It's built to be this tragic story where Victor creates the bride under duress from Eric, and the bride falls for Victor instead of Eric. But it's... okay, I'm just gonna say it. It's disgusting.
Moustache.
Oh, you're such a Dickens.
There's a metaphor here, a good one, about how women aren't objects to be molded and designed as you see fit, not to be forced to love somebody who, frankly, is unlovable. But then the show objectifies her regardless, makes her an object of desire to the audience, and an infantile one at that, harkening back to the regressive born sexy yesterday trope that contextually places Victor as her guardian and father figure, and then smash cuts to, well, a smash cut. The bride, in all the scenes that precede this chronologically, she's portrayed as, at the height of her intellectualism, maybe 7 years old.
I got you something, a gift.
It is good gift.
I told you I was going to say some unkind things, didn't I? Oh, and in the modern day, one of the only other women in the plot, out of 3, just can't keep her hands off of Rick Flag Sr., so I think I'm starting to see a problem here. But hey, at least the action has been good, I guess.
Right in the round tables.
God, I feel like a fish the way I'm flip-flopping on this show. Truth be told, this is a great episode. G.I. Robot is an old-school DC Comics character that's been kicking around since 1962, and they rewrote him quite a lot for Creature Commandos in a way that I personally think is a major upgrade. I've got a soft spot for robotic characters in media who get anthropomorphized or attempt of their own volition to become more human. Data, Andy, the T-800.
I know now why you cry, but it's something I can never do.
And G.I. Robot is a unique case that still fits that category. You see, I believe that G.I. is happy with his existence, understands his limitations, and doesn't seek to be more than what he was designed to do. That being said, he can still find enjoyment in other things, experience happiness, disappointment, and anxiety. It's a unique interpretation of the trope that is one of the first times I find myself genuinely wondering if this robot has a soul. Those 3 androids I mentioned earlier, souls. No doubt about it for a second. But G.I. Robot? I like to think so. But then again, maybe he was programmed this way to build camaraderie with his fellow troops. He seems pretty stringently connected to his programming, after all. Switching over to the end of the episode, though, there's something that got quite a few people up in arms that I'm going to gab about. Weasel absolutely bodied Cersei. Online communities, when this scene came and went, lost it. How could Weasel, the big bipedal weasel, take on Cersei? These people have never seen a fight in their lives, I guarantee it. For starters, Cersei was caught off guard. I mean, if you were fighting a bunch of guys with guns and then this thing ran at you, do you really think you wouldn't blink? Second, he got the upper hand, but that doesn't mean it would have stayed that way if Dr. Phosphorus hadn't joined the fray to chemically curb stomp her. Thirdly, her magic is cast somatically, meaning she needs her hands free to do it, so she could have gotten free and regained the upper hand again if not for her getting ganged up on. So, overall, a good episode. The first episode was okay, second was yikes, but maybe it's starting to pick up. Cast your mind back to the 1990s for a moment, that age where everything was accompanied by that one swirl design and a meal for McDonald's didn't cost as much as an oil change. It's here that we would see a trope that was always wholesome and enjoyable. The Iron Giant, Casper, little monsters. A kid making friends with a creature. He's just misunderstood. He's friendly. No, more than that, he's my friend. Now imagine how quickly that all could have gone sideways. The episode of Creature Commandos to focus on Weasel is both emotionally resonant and expertly crafted. When we first met Weasel in the Suicide Squad, he's associated with something pretty heinous.
I think he's not harmless. He's killed 27 children, but, you know, we got him to, I think he's agreed to do this.
Then, early in this episode, Weasel's lawyer, Betty Bates, whittles that number down.
He was accused of...
And convicted.
And unfairly convicted...
Okay.
...of killing 8 children, not 27.
Oh, then he's a saint.
Oh, and by the way, I was not expecting Betty Bates to ever make it into the DCU. She hasn't been seen in anything since 1950. But then, the clincher. We see what actually happened, start to finish. It's one of those times where you know the train is coming, and there's a car stuck on the tracks, and yet... It's... Wow, okay, they got me. The moment is especially poignant given that we, the audience, now know the truth, but nobody else does. And it's not likely that they ever will.
I wonder what he's dreaming about.
Probably just chasing squirrels.
Remember how I said each episode has flashbacks that make you feel sorry for one of the characters? I lied. The Iron Pot focuses, this time, on Eric Frankenstein, and they show that he well and truly is a 7-foot-tall turd in size 22 boots. Eric is consistently characterized as an inherently self-interested, childish, and easily angered baby stuffed into a stitched-together adult body. But I love that, if only because not every character in a show should be redeemable, and it's that petulant behavior that keeps the scenes in which he's present unpredictable and engaging. Is Eric gonna kill this guy? Oh, yeah. What about the pilot? No. Rick? No. Old lady? Oh, hell yeah. Even in a situation where he declares someone to be his best friend and seems to mean it, he still makes everything about himself. And at the furthest reaches of his capabilities about the bride, though only insofar as much as she must secretly love him. Ick. So in Eric's case, with this new insight, it's honestly refreshing to see him not get a humanizing sob story, to be shown that, at best, he can be comfortable for a time, and maybe during that period only a bit surly and short-tempered, but it will always be a temporary arrangement, ending the moment that his whims and libido say so.
I have to find my bride. Our sole purpose is to be together.
She tried to kill you.
She was being flirtatious and coy.
Speaking of libido, Rick Flag Sr. in this episode is trying absolutely everything he can to keep Waller from Game of Thronesing Princess Ilana, because his life is a James Bond movie, and he's just gotta burn every bridge he can to keep this season's love interest alive. So here's my issue. Flag trying to find evidence that the princess is not a threat to the United States is a sensible move, and they show him doing a lot of recon work rather than going in guns blazing, and I think that's also good. But he's constantly trying to get in contact with the princess directly via phone with no luck. Couldn't he have tried to contact Alexei after he hit a brick wall, or called Waller the moment he started finding evidence of a conspiracy, since time was so clearly a factor? Thankfully, that's my biggest gripe with this episode, and I feel it isn't a major one. Who knows where Rick's head was at during all of this?
Commandos are on their way to assassinate the princess now. We find out the truth of this professor, we stop them, and you get to see your bride. A hero.
On another note, the Iron Pot also introduces us to Clayface. He's done very well here, my favorite detail being that he has a clear distribution of mass. In comics, it's a style choice as to how much size Clayface takes up in a given space, but here you can see him get thinner when he makes bigger objects. Secondly, I'm personally quite excited for the Clayface film written by Mike Flanagan, as I'm a super fan of The Haunting of Hill House, and I wonder if it'll be this Clayface we get in that movie, or another one, since there have been a lot of them in the comics. I also wonder which of the 10 actors Flanagan uses in every project will get to play Basil Carlo. My money's on Oliver Jackson Cohen. Okay. We've had 3 very, very good episodes in a row, but now I get to talk about Priyatel Skelet, an episode that has a phenomenal A story and a completely dogshit B story. Let's start with the good stuff, which pertains mostly to Dr. Phosphorus. His flashback story takes us to Gotham, paired with his modern-day encounter with a young girl while he's hiding from the local authorities. We see a hint of the DCU's Gotham, the classic Batman villain Rupert Thorne, and another heartbreaking story of love and loss. Dr. Phosphorus' story and downfall is, to me, the most interesting part of this episode. Thorne kills his family, and Phosphorus takes revenge, including on Thorne's family. Suddenly, his modern encounter with that kid has got me a hell of a lot more nervous.
It looks like I'm smiling too. But I'm not.
But then the good doctor takes it a step further, seizing Rupert Thorne's posthumous criminal assets for himself and becoming a crime lord as a middle finger to the guy even after he's buried. But then it clearly becomes this downward spiral, a tailspin that he willingly stays trapped in to avoid thinking about all that he's lost. Just drown it out, and eventually you'll be dead, right? Well, joke's on you, chump. Snyder ain't in charge anymore. This Batman doesn't kill people. Like I said, it's good stuff. But the other side of the coin is the story led by the bride and Nina. As the two of them, like Dr. Phosphorus, hide from the authorities, they stumble into a brothel. It's your classic, keep us hidden and no harm will come to you type shtick, but then there's some really weird dialogue.
Have you ever considered this line of work?
Nina and I have a little more respect for ourselves than that.
You use your body as a weapon, as opposed to a source of pleasure. This is how you respect yourself.
You wouldn't get this type of exchange with G.I. Robot or Weasel or Dr. Phosphorus. Then the brothel manager makes an argument about how their lifestyle is a form of expression and freedom. Okay, I don't disagree with the point, but it's a little off when every second shot is just someone's booty cheeks. They also argue that this makes them strong, emboldens them, until some dillweeds come in and undercut the message. The manager heads upstairs when an incident starts and then just starts talking about the rules.
Let me state plainly the rules of Madame Girls. No one is allowed to hurt our girls.
Does this place not have, like, a process for clients who get a little too aggressive? I mean, hell, a brothel over a century ago, this lady would be opening that door with a hunting rifle in her hands. What in the world is this? They talk about independence and inner strength and freedom and then demonstrate that no, these women are totally incapable of defending themselves whatsoever. And only the rare women who have literal superpowers can do anything about even the most simplistic of physical conflicts. James, buddy, pal, my guy, you don't get the brownie points by doing the thing where you draw the other guys as the soy jack and yourself as the Chad. You gotta put some actual thought and effort into it, man. If you want to argue on behalf of feminism as a cisgender white male, you might have to do more than just say haha incels and then show ass anytime a tertiary character has a magazine open. That's not how this works. Do better.
Dudes, am I right?
Sure, John.
Okay, last episode. Be objective. Be objective. Off the top, the fact that we finally get Eric in the same room as the bride only to have it misdirect is both apt and comedic, yet bothersome. To explain what I mean, conceptually, this is a good scene and characterizes the bride in a positive way, but on the other hand, It makes me, honestly, a bit disappointed that we spent so much time with Eric before this, when we could have gotten more time with, well, the actual Creature Commandos. Nina's the one to get the flashback this time around, and I hated it.
Daddy?
Nina, for the whole season, has been pitched to the audience as the sweetheart, the cinnamon roll. So I'd been sitting on the couch for the prior 6 episodes wondering why in the world somebody like her would get incarcerated. The answer? No clue. Fishing without a license, apparently. And that bugs the hell out of me to no end. G.I. Robot gets a court case, Weasel gets a lawyer, Nina gets jail time because the plot demands it. Not to mention her dad getting shot in the most ham-fisted, contrived way imaginable. And her death itself? God damn it. She was a walking narrative device, present for scenes where she might say 1 or 2 lines, then she dies to bump up the angst for the bride. It's fridging by another name. Another name like, stabbing the fish.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
In the comics, she created the Creature Commandos, showing that she's capable, intelligent, and proactive. Here, incapable, and floating belly up. The season conclusion itself, for the most part, is good. I appreciate the setup for a second season, but the whole thing just ended far too abruptly. Like this. Okay, listen. I've got this weird track record where I basically call out all of my complaints with a given show, then spin it around at the 11th hour and say, it was pretty good actually. But I'm not gonna pretend like...
That thing makes me uncomfortable.
I made this.
I love it.
This time, it's not half bad. 6 out of 10. But I'll try to be balanced as we put a bow on this thing. James Gunn's Creature Commandos was a project that he pitched to DC Studios before they offered him the chair, so it's not necessarily representative of his vision for the DCU, and you can take that one way or the other if you like the show or didn't, but the reason I say this is because he may not have been carrying the weight of responsibility when he wrote the project, or chose the ill-fitting needle drops, so things could definitely be very different when we get to July 11th. There's also quite a few people, reasonably, I would say, who argue that the trio of the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, and Creature Commandos indicate that the narrative universe is a dark and damaged one that will be healed and set right with the debut of Superman, a hero that lifts everyone else out of the gutter. I could see that happening. Truthfully, that's what I want to happen. I want to feel good when I walk out of that theater so I can say, that was Superman. But in the same breath, I see Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific, and part of me is worried that while we're getting a Superman movie, we'll also be force-fed a B-plot that's just Guardians of the Galaxy for the 6th time. James Gunn has shown himself to be self-aware, forthcoming, intelligent, and capable of writing complex, dynamic characters in resonant stories. He's come a long way since... Peacemaker is over the top, yes, but the characters are shockingly deep. The same can mostly be said of Creature Commandos. 5 out of 7 primary characters are sincerely engaging, and I'd love to see more from them. But on the other hand, the best scenes are most often given to the male characters, the women given less agency and even less screen time fully dressed. It strays from the likely intent of being provocative into the territory of objectification. To be clear, I'm not a prude. I consume plenty of media, and I'm not averse to content that's aimed at an adult audience, the tantalizing, or the visually saucy. But there's surely a line here, and when I look up the animation studio that James Gunn seemingly handpicked for the series, and it's so much of that I can't even show 90% of any of their other material, or else YouTube will gut me like a fish, it's a bad sign. If I were to be balanced with this, I'd say that it isn't so bad as far as first seasons go. When we get to the second season, plenty could be changed and improved upon. Truth be told, I'd love to see an improvement and have some of the things I take issue with reined in just a little. Not enough to be watered down, studio mandated conveyor belt schlock like we get from most big studios these days, but just enough that I can't make this same argument a second time. I want to put trust in James Gunn. I want to believe that he can keep moving forward while learning what works and what doesn't in good faith. And that's where we'll leave our story for now. I'd like to give a special thanks to our channel members. If you'd like to become a member and support the channel, that would make you my superhero. If you really enjoyed today's video, hopefully enough to have left a like and subscribed, you'll be happy to know that we also have an exploration available here on Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, the creators behind the one and only Superman. Thanks for sticking with us. I'll see you in the next one.